I watched the champagne drip down my daughter's face, saw it stain her dress, watched her hands tremble as she tried to wipe it away. The crystal flute shattered on the marble floor of the Fairmont Royal York Ballroom, and in that moment, I felt something inside me shatter too. Victoria Ashford stood there, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier light, her perfectly manicured hand still raised from throwing the drink. She looked at my daughter Rachel like she was dirt on an expensive shoe. "That," Victoria said, her voice cutting through the sudden silence of the gala, "is what happens when people who don't belong try to play in our world." I felt my grip tighten on the glass of whiskey I'd been nursing. 63 years old, and I'd learned patience. I'd learned to wait, to watch, to gather every piece before making a move. But watching someone hurt your child, that's something no amount of training prepares you for. Let me back up. Let me tell you how we got here. My name is Thomas Mitchell. For the past 20 years, I've worked as a carpenter in Toronto. I build cabinets, restore furniture, fix porches. It's honest work. Work that gets your hands dirty and your back sore. Work that people like Victoria Ashford look down on. My daughter Rachel is 32. She's a social worker at a community center in Regent Park, one of Toronto's toughest neighborhoods. She works with at-risk youth, helps families find housing, connects people with resources they need to survive. She makes $45,000 a year. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment in East York. She takes the TTC to work every day, and she's the best thing I've ever done in this life. The gala was the annual Hope Foundation charity event, one of those black tie affairs where Toronto's elite gather to write checks and feel good about themselves. Rachel's community center was one of the beneficiaries this year, which is why she was there. They'd asked her to give a speech about the work they do, about the lives they'd changed. She'd been so excited, she'd saved up for 3 months to buy that dress, a simple navy blue number from a shop on Queen Street. $200, which for her was a significant investment. She'd shown it to me the week before, twirling in my living room like she was 16 again. "What do you think, Dad?" "You look beautiful, sweetheart. You always do." I'd offered to buy her something nicer. I had the money, more than she knew. But Rachel was proud, independent. She wanted to do it herself. The gala was in the grand ballroom at the Fairmont. Chandeliers the size of small cars, walls covered in gold leaf, tables draped in white linen. The kind of place where a glass of wine costs more than some people make in a day. I was there as Rachel's guest. I'd borrowed a suit from my neighbor, polished my old dress shoes until they shone. I felt out of place immediately, but I was there for my daughter, and that was all that mattered. Victoria Ashford was the star of the evening. Her company, Ashford Properties, was the primary sponsor. She donated $500,000, and she made sure everyone knew it. She wore a red gown that probably cost more than Rachel's car, diamonds at her throat, and wrists that could have funded Rachel's community center for a year. I'd known who Victoria was for 10 years, but she had no idea who I was. The trouble started at the cocktail hour. Rachel was near the bar, talking to another social worker, when Victoria approached with her entourage. 3 women in designer dresses, all clutching champagne flutes, all wearing the same superior expression. "Excuse me," Victoria said, interrupting Rachel's conversation. "You're one of the charity cases, aren't you? From that place in Regent Park?" Rachel turned, smiled politely. "I work at the Regent Park Community Center. Yes, I'm Rachel Mitchell. I'll be speaking later about our youth programs." Victoria looked her up and down, her eyes lingering on Rachel's dress. "Well, I suppose we should expect modesty from someone in your position." One of her friends laughed. "Is that from Winners?" Rachel's smile tightened, but she kept her composure. "Actually, it's from a lovely boutique on Queen Street. The owner is a local designer trying to make a start." "How quaint," Victoria said. She sipped her champagne, her eyes cold. "I suppose when you work with the poor, you have to dress like them too. Method acting, is it?" I was standing about 10 feet away, talking to one of the other guests. I saw Rachel's face change, saw the hurt flash across her features before she covered it. I started to move toward her, but she caught my eye and gave a tiny shake of her head. She could handle it. "I believe," Rachel said, her voice steady, That what matters is the work we do, not what we wear while doing it. Oh, darling, Victoria laughed. That's exactly what people who can't afford nice things always say. She turned to her friends. Remember when we thought like that? Back in university, before we learned how the world actually works? Rachel's cheeks flushed red. I saw her hands clench at her sides. The world works, Rachel said quietly, because people care about each other, because people help each other, not because of how much money they have or what label is on their dress. Victoria's smile turned sharp. How adorable. You actually believe that. She leaned in closer. Let me tell you how the world really works, sweetheart. People like me write checks. People like you cash them. That's the natural order. And if you're smart, you'll learn your place and be grateful for it. I was moving now, sliding through the crowd. But before I could reach them, a waiter accidentally bumped into Victoria. Just a slight jostle, but enough to make her champagne spill. A few drops landing on her dress. Victoria whirled on him. Do you have any idea how much this gown costs? Are you stupid? The waiter, a young man who couldn't have been more than 20, went pale. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean... Didn't mean? Victoria's voice rose. Do you know who I am? I could have you fired with one phone call. In fact, it was an accident, Rachel said, stepping forward. He barely touched you. It's just a few drops. Victoria turned her cold gaze on my daughter. No one asked you, darling. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. You're berating someone who made an honest mistake. That's not right. Not right? Victoria laughed. Who are you to tell me what's right? You work in a slum, making poverty wages, wearing bargain bin clothes, and you're going to lecture me about what's right? The people around us had gone quiet. A circle was forming, everyone watching. I work helping people, Rachel said, her voice shaking slightly. I make a difference in people's lives. What do you do besides throw money around and treat people like they're beneath you? Victoria's face went hard. I employ thousands of people. I contribute millions to this city's economy. I am the reason charities like yours even exist. Without people like me, there would be no money for little bleeding hearts like you to give away. She took a step closer to Rachel. You want to know the difference between us? I build things. I create value. You're just a parasite, feeding off the wealth that people like me generate. That's enough, I said, reaching them finally. Victoria glanced at me like I was a piece of furniture. And who are you? I'm her father. Ah, Victoria looked between us. Well, then you raised a very rude daughter. She should learn some manners. Learn to respect her betters. Betters? The word tasted bitter. What makes you better than my daughter? Victoria gestured around the room. This. All of this. My company built half the condos in this city. I sit on the boards of 3 hospitals and 2 universities. I have a net worth of $400 million. What do you do, Mr. Mitchell? Thomas Mitchell. What do you do, Mr. Mitchell? I'm a carpenter. The disdain on her face was instant. A carpenter. How? Rustic. She turned back to Rachel. So you come from blue-collar stock. That explains so much. The cheap dress, the misguided idealism, the complete lack of understanding about how society actually functions. My father, Rachel said, her voice tight with anger, is a good man who works hard. I'm sure he is, Victoria interrupted. I'm sure he's very good at hammering nails or whatever it is carpenters do. But that doesn't change the fact that you don't belong here, darling. This is a gala for people who matter. People who contribute, not for charity cases and their blue-collar families. She picked up a fresh glass of champagne from a passing tray. Here's some advice from someone who's made something of herself. Know your place, accept your station, and don't embarrass yourself by pretending you're something you're not. That's when she threw it. The champagne hit Rachel full in the face. It soaked into her hair, ran down her neck, stained the dress she'd saved 3 months to buy. The glass fell, shattered on the marble. The entire ballroom went silent. Rachel stood there, champagne dripping from her chin, her eyes wide with shock and humiliation. Her hands came up slowly to wipe her face, trembling. Victoria smiled. There, now you match your dress, cheap and ruined. I saw my daughter's eyes fill with tears, saw her bottom lip quiver, saw the shame and hurt wash over her face. Something in my chest went cold. "Dad," Rachel whispered, looking at me. "Can we just go, please?" I looked at Victoria Ashford, really looked at her, saw the cruelty in her eyes, the satisfaction at having hurt someone she considered beneath her. Saw the way her friends were smirking, how the crowd was murmuring, some with sympathy, but many with barely concealed amusement. I pulled out my phone. "What are you doing?" Victoria laughed. "Calling a lawyer? Good luck with that. My legal team would eat you alive." I didn't answer. I scrolled through my contacts, found the name I needed. "This is pathetic," Victoria continued. "You actually think you can do something to me? I am untouchable. I could destroy you both with one phone call. I could make sure your daughter never works in this city again. I could." The call connected. "James," I said quietly. "It's Thomas Mitchell. Badge number 4729. I'm at the Fairmont Royal York, ballroom level. I need you to execute the warrant." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure, Tom? It's been 10 years. If we move now, I'm sure. She just assaulted my daughter in front of 200 witnesses. I'm done waiting." "Understood. We're 12 minutes out." I ended the call. Victoria was staring at me, her smile faltering. "What was that? What did you just do?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my wallet. From it, I extracted a small leather case. I flipped it open. My RCMP badge gleamed in the chandelier light. "My name is Thomas Mitchell," I said. "For the past 20 years, I've worked as a carpenter. Before that, I spent 25 years as an investigator with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Financial Crimes Division. I retired at the rank of Staff Sergeant." Victoria's face had gone pale. "You're lying." 10 years ago, I continued, my voice calm, I started an investigation into Ashford properties. Money laundering, tax evasion, fraud, wire fraud, racketeering. I looked at her directly. I had most of what I needed 5 years ago, but I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to make sure that when we moved, there would be no escape, no loopholes, no plea deals. "This is insane," Victoria said, but her voice was shaking now. "You can't." I handed over the complete investigation file to the Crown Attorney's office 3 weeks ago. The warrant for your arrest was issued 5 days ago. I asked them to hold it until I gave the word. I've been waiting for the right moment. I looked at my daughter, still standing there soaked in champagne, tears on her cheeks. This is the right moment. Victoria's friends had backed away from her. The crowd was dead silent now, everyone straining to hear. "You assaulted my daughter," I said, "in front of all these witnesses. That's the last crime you'll commit as a free woman." "This is entrapment," Victoria hissed. "This is harassment. My lawyers." "Your lawyers," I said, "are going to be very busy. We have documentation of every fraudulent transaction your company has made in the past 15 years. We have testimony from 8 former employees who witnessed your crimes. We have bank records from 3 different countries showing systematic money laundering. We have emails, memos, recorded phone calls." I paused. "We have everything." Victoria looked around wildly. "Someone do something. Call security. This man is harassing me. He's making false accusations. The ballroom doors opened. 6 RCMP officers walked in, led by Inspector James Chen, my former partner. He was in full uniform, his face professionally neutral. "Victoria Ashford?" he said, approaching her. She backed away. No, this isn't happening. "Do you know who I am? I've donated millions to this city. I know the mayor. I know the police chief." "Victoria Ashford," James said formally, "you are under arrest for fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and multiple counts of racketeering. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel without delay." "This is a mistake," Victoria shrieked. "I haven't done anything wrong. This is persecution. One of the officers produced handcuffs. "No," Victoria said, her voice rising to a scream. "No, you can't do this. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, ma'am, James said quietly. You're someone who thought they were above the law. They cuffed her, right there in the ballroom, in front of 200 people, in her designer gown and diamonds. She fought, screamed, threatened. She name-dropped every powerful person she knew. She promised to destroy careers, to sue everyone involved. None of it mattered. As they led her toward the doors, she turned back to me. You, she spat. You did this. You set me up. I didn't set you up, I said. I just did my job. You committed crimes. I gathered evidence. That's how this works. My lawyers will tear you apart. I'll sue you for everything you have. Your lawyers, I said, are going to advise you to take whatever plea deal the Crown offers. Because if this goes to trial, you're looking at 25 years minimum. Her face crumpled. For a moment, the arrogance was gone, replaced by raw fear. Then the officers pulled her through the doors, and she was gone. The ballroom erupted in noise. Everyone talking at once, pulling out phones, already spreading the news. I turned to Rachel. She was staring at me, champagne still dripping from her hair, her eyes wide. Dad, she whispered, what just happened? I pulled out my handkerchief, started gently wiping her face. Someone needed to learn that money doesn't make you better than other people. That treating people with cruelty has consequences. But 10 years? You've been investigating her for 10 years? I started the investigation when I was still active duty. When I retired, I handed it off to my old team. But I kept contributing, kept building the case. I had most of what we needed years ago, but I wanted it to be airtight. I finished wiping her face, looked at her seriously. I never thought our paths would cross like this. I never wanted you to see this side of my past. But when she threw that drink at you, when she hurt you, I shook my head. I couldn't let that stand. Rachel's eyes filled with tears again, but different ones this time. You did this for me? I did this because it was right, because she was a criminal who needed to face justice. But yes, sweetheart, I did it for you too. She hugged me then, right there in the ballroom, not caring about the champagne soaking my borrowed suit, not caring about the 200 people watching. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, honey. The gala was canceled, of course. The organizers were scrambling. The guests were leaving in droves, all desperate to be the first to spread the gossip. James came over to us before he left. Tom, good to see you. You too, James. He looked at Rachel. You must be Rachel. Your father talks about you all the time. He does? Constantly. You and your work. He's very proud. Rachel looked at me with wonder. I had no idea about any of this. About your past, about the investigation, about everything. I wanted to leave that life behind, I said. When I retired, I wanted to be just your dad. The carpenter who fixes things and comes to your place for Sunday dinner. I didn't want you to see me as whatever I was before. A hero, Rachel said. That's what you were. That's what you are. James cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Tom, this case is going to be huge. Ashford Properties is worth hundreds of millions. When all this comes out, there are going to be a lot of questions about how someone operated like this for so long. That's your problem now, I said. I'm retired, remember? Right. James smiled. Though between you and me, the Crown Attorney said this is the most complete financial crimes case she's ever seen. Your work on this was exceptional. I had good teachers. After James left, Rachel and I stood there in the emptying ballroom. Her dress was ruined. My suit was damp with champagne. But neither of us cared. What happens now? Rachel asked. Now? We go home. We order pizza. We watch a movie. We forget this ever happened. Dad, I don't think I can forget this. You just arrested one of the most powerful women in Toronto in front of everyone she knows. Then we'll remember it, I said. But not tonight. Tonight, you've been through enough. We took a cab back to my place. Rachel borrowed some of my old clothes, threw her dress in the wash, even though we both knew it was probably beyond saving. We ordered Hawaiian pizza from the place down the street, put on an old episode of The Nature of Things, and tried to pretend it was a normal evening. But it wasn't normal. My phone was ringing constantly. news outlets, former colleagues, people I hadn't heard from in years. I turned it off. Around midnight, Rachel spoke up. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When did you know? That she was criminal, I mean." I thought about it. 12 years ago, I was investigating a money laundering operation, following the trail of shell companies and offshore accounts. One of those trails led to Ashford Properties. I started looking closer, and the more I looked, the more I found. I paused. Victoria Ashford is very good at appearing legitimate. She donates to charity, sits on boards, shakes hands with politicians, but underneath all that, she's been running a sophisticated criminal operation for nearly 2 decades. What will happen to her? If she's smart, she'll take a plea deal. Plead guilty to some of the charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, maybe 10 to 15 years. If she fights it, if this goes to trial, she'll probably get 25 to 30. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Is it weird that I feel a little bit sorry for her? I looked at my daughter, saw the compassion in her eyes. This was why she was a social worker, why she spent her days helping people. She couldn't help seeing the humanity in everyone, even someone like Victoria Ashford. "No," I said. "That's not weird. That's who you are. You see the good in people, even when they don't deserve it. But she hurt people. She broke laws. She deserves to be punished. She does. And she will be. But that doesn't mean you can't feel empathy for what she's lost, for what she threw away. That's what makes you different from her, Rachel. You never lost your ability to care about people." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Dad. For doing the right thing, even when it took 10 years. For not giving up. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. For standing up to her tonight. For not backing down, even when she tried to humiliate you. You're stronger than you know." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching David Attenborough explain something about wolves, and I thought about the path that had led us here. I joined the RCMP at 22, fresh out of university with a degree in accounting and a desire to make a difference. I'd started in regular patrol, worked my way up to detective, then specialized in financial crimes. I'd spent 25 years tracking down people who thought their money made them untouchable. People who thought they could steal, cheat, and hurt others without consequences. Victoria Ashford wasn't the first. She wouldn't be the last. But she was the most satisfying. I'd retired at 55, walked away from the job with a full pension and a lot of memories. Some good, some bad, all heavy. I'd become a carpenter because I wanted to build things instead of tearing them down. I wanted to create instead of destroy. But I'd kept my hand in, consulting on cases, reviewing evidence, mentoring younger investigators. And when the Victoria Ashford case crossed my desk, when I saw what she was doing, I couldn't let it go. 10 years. That's how long it took to build an unbreakable case, to document every transaction, trace every dollar, connect every dot. It was obsessive, maybe, but it was necessary. And tonight, watching her throw champagne in my daughter's face, seeing the cruelty and arrogance in her eyes, I knew I'd made the right choice. The story hit the news the next morning. Toronto Star, Globe and Mail, CBC, CTV, every outlet had it. Prominent developer arrested at charity gala. Ashford Properties CEO charged with fraud. Toronto real estate magnate led double life. The details came out slowly over the next few weeks. The shell companies in the Cayman Islands, the fraudulent loans, the bribes to city officials, the money laundering through luxury condo sales. It was worse than even I had documented. Once the investigation went public, more victims came forward. More evidence surfaced. Victoria Ashford's empire collapsed in days. Her company's stock became worthless. Her board of directors resigned. Her business partners scrambled to distance themselves. The charities returned her donations. The hospitals removed her name from buildings. Everything she'd built, everything she'd been so proud of, gone. Her lawyers tried to fight. They filed motions, sought dismissals, claimed procedural errors. Nothing worked. The case was too solid, the evidence too overwhelming. 3 months after her arrest, she took a plea deal. 15 years in federal prison, forfeiture of all assets, restitution to victims. She'd be 73 when she got out, assuming she got full parole. Rachel and I went to the sentencing hearing. We sat in the back, watched Victoria in her orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked small, ordinary, nothing like the woman who'd stood in that ballroom dripping in diamonds. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she stood, looked around the courtroom. Her eyes landed on me for a moment, and I saw something there. Not apology, not remorse, just recognition, an understanding that she'd underestimated the quiet carpenter in the borrowed suit. "I have nothing to say," she said. The judge sentenced her. 15 years. Victoria showed no emotion as they led her away. Outside the courthouse, Rachel turned to me. "How do you feel?" "Tired," I admitted. "Relieved. Sad, maybe." Sad? She had everything. Money, power, success. She could have done so much good with all of that. Instead, she chose cruelty. She chose to hurt people, to take what wasn't hers, to build her fortune on other people's suffering. I shook my head. "What a waste." Rachel took my hand. "But because of you, she can't hurt anyone else. Because of you, justice was served." "Justice," I said. "Maybe. Or just consequences. Either way, it's done." We went for coffee after that, sat in a Tim Hortons on Queen Street, and talked about other things. Rachel's work, her plans for the community center, the kids she was helping, life moving forward. A week later, I got a call from the Hope Foundation. They wanted to reschedule the gala, wanted Rachel to still give her speech. This time, there'd be new sponsors, new donors, people who'd been inspired by Rachel's courage in standing up to Victoria, people who wanted to support her work. "Will you come?" Rachel asked me. "I don't know if I'm really a gala kind of guy." "Please, Dad, I want you there. And this time, I'm buying you a proper suit. No borrowing." I laughed. "Okay, I'll be there." The new gala was smaller, more intimate. Only about 80 people. But they were there for the right reasons. Not to be seen, not to show off, but to actually help. Rachel gave her speech. She talked about the kids she worked with, the families struggling to survive, the hope that came from having someone believe in you. She talked about dignity, about respect, about how every person matters regardless of their bank account. She was brilliant, poised, and passionate, and powerful. When she finished, the room gave her a standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Afterward, people approached us, wanted to shake my hand, wanted to tell me they'd read about the case, that they admired what I'd done. "You're a hero," one man said. I shook my head. "I'm just someone who did his job." "No," the man insisted. "You're more than that. You spent 10 years building a case because you believed in justice. That's extraordinary." Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just what you do when you see something wrong and have the ability to make it right. Walking Rachel back to her car that night, she slipped her arm through mine. "Thank you, Dad." "For what?" "For everything. For raising me to stand up for what's right. For teaching me that people matter more than money. For protecting me, even when I didn't know I needed protecting." "You're my daughter," I said. "I'll always protect you." "I know. But tonight, I realized something. You weren't just protecting me. You were protecting everyone. Victoria hurt. Everyone she would have hurt if you hadn't stopped her. You saved a lot of people, Dad." I thought about that. All the families who'd been defrauded, all the workers who'd been exploited, all the people Victoria had stepped on in her climb to the top. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe this was bigger than just one moment in a ballroom. "I did what anyone would have done," I said. "No," Rachel said firmly. "Most people would have walked away. Most people would have let someone else handle it. You didn't. You saw something wrong, and you spent 10 years making it right. That's not what anyone would do. That's what a hero does." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a father who'd watched his daughter get hurt and made sure the person who hurt her faced consequences. I felt like a retired cop who couldn't let go of a case that mattered. I felt like someone who'd gotten lucky that the pieces fell into place at exactly the right moment. But if Rachel wanted to see me as a hero, I could live with that. 6 months later, I was in my workshop, building a cabinet for a client, when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Mitchell?" This is Joanne Winters from the Department of Justice. I'm calling about the Ashford case. What about it? We've been able to trace most of the funds from her criminal enterprise. After restitution to victims and legal fees, there's a significant amount remaining. As the primary investigator on the case, you're entitled to a portion of the asset forfeiture recovery. How much? $3.2 million. I nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Mitchell, are you there? I'm here. That's a lot of money. It's a percentage based on the total assets recovered and your contribution to the case. The paperwork is being prepared now. You should receive the funds within 60 days. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, looking at the half-finished cabinet, thinking about what $3.2 million meant. It meant I could retire the rest of the borrowed suit. It meant I could help Rachel with her student loans. It meant I could donate to her community center, really make a difference in the work she was doing. But more than that, it meant that sometimes doing the right thing, even when it takes 10 years, even when it seems impossible, pays off in ways you never expected. I called Rachel. Hey, sweetheart, you free for dinner tonight? Sure, Dad. What's the occasion? I'll tell you when I see you. But I'm thinking somewhere nice, really nice. And you're getting a new dress, a good one this time. She laughed. Dad, what's going on? I'll explain everything tonight. I love you, honey. I love you too. I hung up, looked around my workshop. The tools I'd collected over 20 years, the sawdust on the floor, the smell of wood and varnish. This life I'd built after leaving the RCMP. I thought I was done with police work, done with investigations and cases and bad guys. I thought I was just going to be a carpenter, a father, a regular person living a regular life. But sometimes the past comes back. Sometimes the skills you thought you'd left behind turn out to be exactly what you need. Sometimes the person you used to be and the person you are now aren't so different after all. And sometimes justice takes 10 years, but it comes around in the end. I went back to work on the cabinet. Whatever happened next, whatever I did with the money, whatever stories people told about the night Victoria Ashford was arrested at a charity gala, none of it changed who I was. I was Thomas Mitchell. I was a carpenter. I was a father. I was a man who believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it took years, even when nobody was watching. And I was someone who would always stand up for the people I loved. The champagne had washed away. The dress had been replaced. The tears had dried. But the lesson remained. Money doesn't make you better than anyone. Power doesn't put you above the law. And underestimating the quiet person in the borrowed suit might be the biggest mistake you ever make. Victoria Ashford learned that lesson the hard way. And somewhere in a federal prison, as she served her 15-year sentence, I hoped she was finally understanding what I'd tried to show her that night in the ballroom. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone has dignity. And everyone, no matter how rich or powerful, is accountable for their actions. That's not just justice. That's being human.